So what will we be doing today?
Well, today we are exploring the plot of an interactive extravaganza. So without further ado, good afternoon and welcome to Finding the Plot. My name is Sebastian Whittington Smythe.
And I am Grell Whittington Smythe.
And today we'll be looking at, well, Grell, I'm going to leave that to you.
Well, today's piece is going to be exploring power, manipulation, and the intentional dumbing down of society to keep those at the top in power, while the rest of the population becomes a docile flock of sheep to be exploited for power and profit.
Very good, very good. So sit back, relax, and enjoy a glass of wine. Grell, where's your wine?
I did not bring any. I bought unbranded blue juice. Other blue juices are available.
Is it at least alcoholic?
No, but it is a visual metaphor for the opposing ideologies and personalities of the characters in the narrative we shall be exploring today.
I like it. Very good. So, sit back, relax, and drink your visual metaphors as we find the plot of DMC, Devil May Cry.
Fizzes.
Okay, Grell, talk me through your thoughts on the game.
As I said, this game is all about control of the media on the population. To truly demonstrate this, let's talk about the different facets of control being exerted on the humans in the game. The first one I'll talk about is Bob Barbas. In his human form, he is a news presenter, not unlike Bill O'Reilly of Fox News fame.
We got you, we'll crush you. And you know what? We'll do it live. You suck. We're gonna do it live.
Not only does he present a biased news narrative claiming that the protagonist, Dante, is a terrorist, a murderer, and more besides, he also makes bold claims that he is doing God's work. Any intelligent analyst can tell you how hypocritical and fake his news reports are from this line. This is because Bob is a demon, so by the definition is actively doing the opposite of God's work.
Aside from his own show, Bob also runs Raptor News, which is like Fox News except for lizard people. Raptor News, or at least its parent company, let's call them News Corp because that's basically what it is, runs a whole swathe of biased media. How biased? Well, we see newspapers that portray Mundus's alter ego, Rob Ryder, to be a hero, but not only is he Bob's boss, he is also really evil. Speaking of the newspaper, I'm very fond of this mini article that we see in the intro to the game. Video games linked to rising obesity. People are getting fat and need something to blame, suggests new study.
Do you mind? I was talking. Raptor News panders to the public fears by spouting popular, easy-to-digest news narrative that present the world as black and white. Terrorists are bad, we must fight them. Politicians and bankers are bad, except one particular banker, who is our saviour and should be our overlord, that sort of thing. It reaches beyond news, though. Bob controls marketing and surveillance, and uses its reach to incorporate the population to believe its twisted narrative. To consume products that Raptor News benefits from.
You know, Grell, I'm really glad that this is just fiction. That there aren't really any large media corporations who would stoop so low as to take a genuine fact and turn it into some sort of hysteria-inducing headline to suit their terrorism narrative. I mean, that sort of thing just wouldn't bear thinking of. On the surveillance side, Bob's networks spy on the population, looking for any sign of dissent. Anybody who goes against the demon's narrative will be marked as a threat and pulled into limbo to have their soul destroyed.
This works because both the indoctrination and surveillance are multidimensional. Advertising posters in the real world might advertise virility, a soft drink that makes you sexually attractive, but posters in limbo say otherwise. And the cameras, well, they're like this. I have to admit, Sebastian, I am a little confused about how that works, actually. And how Limbo works, come to think of it. And I'm not alone. Anybody who's played DMC Devil May Cry has a long list of questions about how Limbo works. It's an impressively designed world and interesting content, but there are so many holes in its logic.
Do you need any help?
Answers? I want answers. After you've eaten this apple.
I will give you answers, but I will not eat the apple. Apple is an electronics manufacturer. It is a record label. It's a lifestyle choice, but it is not food. I will go into this in more detail later, but for now, remember that Limbo is a metaphor for the real world, the world behind the marketing spin. The real world in the game is a false world where we see what the corporations want us to see. Limbo is the world that actually shows us the truth. Here we see the true intent of the demons, that the adverts are lies, that the surveillance cameras are not for our protection, but are really beasts that want to catch us out. And we see the true origins of virility itself.
Which I will get onto.
But to answer your question as to how the cameras and the posters work to subliminally manipulate people, you will need to understand Limbo itself, and I'll save that for after we've talked about virility, because I'm sure you'll have a lot more questions then. Ah yes, virility. That drink that makes you sexier, better, fitter, and more virile. Hence the name.
It's presented as a green drink, the most popular beverage in the world, and the adverts tell you that you'll be better for drinking it, but the reality, as shown in Limbo, is that it makes you fat and lethargic. This refers to big drink brands like Coke, Pepsi, Red Bull, and many, many others who don't advertise what the drink is. Think about that for a second. Have you ever seen a Coke, Pepsi, Red Bull, Monster, Dr. Pepper, Rockstar advert ever tell you what it tastes like or what they're made of? I haven't. Instead, they tell you what lifestyle you will aspire to if you want to join their cult of their beverage. It's aspirational advertising and makes you want to buy into the person you want to be, regardless of the taste of the drink or perceived health benefits. As we progress, we see that virility in the game is shown to be created by the excretions of the succubus, which is from,
Succubi are female demons that seduce men in a sexual way. Traditionally, men who partook in the succubus's pleasures were shown to deteriorate and eventually die. But this succubus, unlike most depictions, is not attractive and certainly doesn't look human. But its nectar is intoxicating, and it increases sexual potency.
I knew that! The succubus lives in Limbo, below the virility factory, and is producing virility from a substance that most people would not want to drink. However, people don't know about it, so they become addicted, having their senses dulled and they cannot resist the suggestions of the media. Sedation through consumption. The media tells mankind to drink what they're told to, so that they become dependent on it, and become more suggestible to the commands of the media. A self-perpetuating cycle. While actual cola isn't laced with mind control juice, it is still relevant, as well, Coke and Pepsi are so big that their marketing budget is in place to remind you solely that it exists. So it continues to be the drink that people think of. They're not selling you the product anymore, but buying an association in your brain. But Sebastian, as much as I hate to say it, you are right. I have more questions. Namely, the succubus lives in Limbo. How does it get the virility into the real world, and why is the succubus's lair so much larger and, well, plain different to the factory in the real world? You promised answers!
And answers you shall have. Limbo is a big one in this game. It's the aspect that seems to have the community, well, those who aren't just slating the game, asking the most questions, and hopefully I can explain it adequately. At its core, Limbo is the dimension where demons live, and one of the destinations for human souls when people die. We see these souls at various points of the game, either roasting in hellish fires or as lost souls stuck to walls, and of course we collect souls when we defeat enemies and smash arcade machines. Demons in Limbo cannot interact with the real world, or people in the real world, which is why the boss demons such as Mundus, Lilith and Bob have to work through human hosts. They were able to psychically influence the minds of humans and gain control of their bodies like the insidious mediums that they are. But Sebastian, you dominant force in game commentary and shining beacon of all that is gentlemanly, I hear you cry. If demons can't interact with the real world, explain the Ferris wheel. And I shall. You see, Limbo itself is not a physical world. The only way that humans can get there is by sending their soul there as a sort of spirit walk, which is how Cat does it, or by being drawn there by a demon. We never see this happening to a human, only ever to Dante or Virgil, who are different due to their Nephilim blood. Anyway, when humans who are possessed by demons, such as Bob Barbas, construct things or have links to them, be they Ferris wheels or buildings, they don't just receive a physical form in the real world, but an echo in Limbo. Thus, what happens to one happens to the other. That's not all though. By creating something like this that breaks the cosmic rules, it weakens the barrier between the real world and Limbo. Cat and Virgil speak of rifts, weaknesses in the veil that allow people, well, Nephilim, to cross between worlds. I suspect that when a demon that exists in both worlds creates something, it creates a rift of sorts as well, but a rift that humans can subconsciously see through, meaning that they see the subliminal commands in Limbo when they look at a poster, and that is why the cameras can see in both realms as well. And it's why the Virility Factory works. A factory created in Limbo and the real world by demons that span both, creating enough weaknesses in the rift that the magic succubus juice can take physical form and pass freely between realms, much like Cat's magic grenades can. Oh, and what happens when a demon who possesses a human dies? Well, when Dante kills Bob, we see Bob's human host dying of a heart attack, rather than taking on physical damage. This is because the demon, the true Bob, is a manifestation of energy, and when it goes, so does the life force of the host. And now onto the Virility Factory itself, and a key facet of Limbo, the ever-changing shape and size of locations in Limbo. You may think that Limbo is physically shifting, but for one little dialogue exchange.
Whoa! Are you nuts?
I forget. You and I see things differently. Seeing things differently can open new paths.
What do you mean?
You only see evil in me because I am a demon. Try opening your mind. It's all a matter of perspective. As I said, I see things differently. We'll meet up ahead. I have something to show you.
There we have all we need to know. Limbo appears differently depending on who is looking at it. Dante may perceive a gap, while others may perceive ground. The appearance we see of Limbo in the game is not how it truly appears, but how Dante sees it. The question then is, what makes him see it as he does? That is the work of the more powerful demons. Look at the early sections of the game, in a domain that isn't especially controlled by one demon or another. Mundus, when he is aware of Dante, can, as the game mentions, bend the city to his will. But it's a long way away. He has to specifically try to warp the city, or Dante's perception of it. When you go into the domain of a demon, be it Bob, Lilith, or indeed the succubus's realm, the worlds become their plaything. They decide the look, the shape, the traps. They impress their will and their power on Dante, suggesting these things. None of it is real, but if we accept that demons are non-physical souls, and this is a spiritual attack on Dante, then we can look at it as being like light through a prism, or bending around a black hole. It is not that the world has changed, but that the spiritual energy is being bent around them to appear how they want it to. And if the soul is truly convinced that it is falling and being damaged, then that is what will happen to it, a placebo death that becomes real.
I think I understand. No, I most definitely do. So, that Ferris wheel at the beginning that the hunter throws, that was made by Mundus or Bob, perhaps as a publicity stunt. So, because it was of demon and human origins, it could be damaged by whatever happened to it.
Exactly.
That brings us nicely to Lilith, Mundus's lover, who seems to have an issue with the succubus, like perhaps Mundus had sex with her.
Maybe she's sexy for a demon. Different strokes and all that.
Well, their strokes certainly are different. Lilith runs a nightclub and keeps the populace dumb through drugs, alcohol and music. This is where the rich and successful schmooze, cut deals and network. It's like that scene in American Psycho, except rather than cutting business deals, the demonic substances are making them suggestible to demonic influences, who can be exploited by Bob or Mundus, and will become demon collaborators. Collaborators who expose anybody exhibiting free will, and who can be used to pull others into limbo. Perhaps the strongest collaborators become hosts to other powerful demons.
Again we see that Lilith, when Dante confronts her, uses her will to create an interesting world that physically takes up no more space than the club, but which appears to represent her particular domain.
Do you want to talk about Mundus while I refill our glasses?
Oh, that'd be very kind of you, thank you. Mundus is a kingpin. Hell, he even looks like him. But in all fairness, he did come before Daredevil Netflix's incarnation of Fisk. Mundus is the ruler of the demons, a demon king no less. Look at him as the game's version of a Rupert Murdoch, or even a Piers Morgan if you want to get really evil. He controls the media of Bob Barbas, controls the beverage industry, and uses the corrupt nightclubs and drugs to control the people. He has mind, body, and soul in his hands. What is unusual is that he doesn't want to destroy the world. He doesn't want people to die, really. He has taken over the world by the time we begin the game, to the point that our first encounter with him is spying on a conversation with him and the President of the United States.
No, you can't have more time. You know the terms, you know the consequences. Should you fail to comply, the collapse of the economy will be on your head. I will make sure that you are stripped of power
shamed, and hated. You have a good night, Mr. President.
He uses the media to make himself look like a hero, and uses it to crush anybody who stands against him. And this is the important thing. Mundus is powerful because he eats souls. The fewer people there are, the fewer souls he gets to consume, and the fewer souls he consumes, the weaker he becomes. And if he's weak and everyone is angry, he runs the risk of being exposed and possibly rejected. And he really doesn't want that. And so he keeps people dumb, but happily atop Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Unfortunately, because of this, the world is inauthentic. Nothing is real. The media spews out sanitized, biased messages. Politics follows predetermined narratives designed to garner the most attention, but minimum unwanted impact. Mundus himself is shown to be the hero of the banks as Rob Ryder, living in his ivory tower with the Hellgate. He is literally sucking out the souls of mankind while they worship him for being the font of all that is good and delicious. And that's really like this world. As much as one may despise Murdoch, Morgan, Trump, they don't want to destroy the world, they just want something to rule, to profit from. There is no profit, ruling or success if they have nothing to rule over or capitalise on. They protect their interests and damn everyone else. Outside of being a right royal tosser, Mundus ascended to his position as King of Demons by generally being a bit of a knob in limbo. He and his band of demons, which included Dante and Virgil's dad Sparda, killed their way up the ranks, presumably. I mean, not to be racist, but how else would demons do it? And just as he was getting to his throne, he discovered that not only was Sparda engaging in sauciness with an angel, which is wholly frowned upon by demonkind, but the bint was pregnant. This is a big deal because according to the lore of DMC Devil May Cry, demon kings can only be killed by Nephilim, offspring of a demon and an angel, and Sparda, Mundus' right-hand man, had just made one. Angry, Mundus went to hunt for them, eventually finding Eve, Sparda's wife, and tearing out her heart. He then found Sparda and had him imprisoned and tortured for all eternity. Only Dante and Virgil remain, which is for the best really, or we wouldn't have a game now, would we? I suppose Mundus was especially angry with Sparda because surely Sparda knew how to overthrow him. So one has to ask whether Sparda plans to overthrow Mundus with the Nephilim all along, or if he was just feeling frisky and made intercelestial babes by accident. Thank you very much. What is this? It tastes non-alcoholic.
I had no idea which wine to open, so I used Ribena I bought. Other squashes are available.
What did you do? Just dilute it with water? What are you trying to do? Poison me?
So, Mundus rules the world through corrupt media and can only be stopped by a Nephilim, whom he knows exists, but despite being all-powerful, hasn't been able to find? I find this a little hard to believe. The moon goes up, the moon goes down. You can't explain that.
Oh, I can, actually. We know that Mundus is incredibly single-minded and impulsive, and that when he's in a rage, he misses a lot of things because he gets tunnel vision. We see this because in the footage of Mundus killing Eve, Dante is there, yet he got out alive. To understand why, let's get a few things out of the way. Sparda is a demon. He lived with Eve and the kids in the real world for 7 years. We know this because their home was in the real world, and we see Dante and Virgil reminiscing in a playground that they went to as kids. This tells us that Sparda would be inhabiting a human host because, being a demon, he cannot physically exist in the real world. This explains why we never see what Sparda truly looks like. We see glimpses of faceless human figures, and a silhouette of his true form when he's being tortured, but we never truly see the real Sparda. Not that we know of, at least. Therefore, Mundus probably wouldn't recognise Sparda in the real world, even if he walked past him. How would he? All he would see is a human. Eve, though. Eve is an angel. And we know what she looks like because in the real world and in Limbo she looks the same. I suspect that angels can inhabit the real world, and they don't need to take hosts. Unless I misread that bit of the Bible where the angel Gabriel wore Joseph's skin to approach Mary. Therefore, all Mundus needed to do was find Eve. Easier said than done when he may not have known who she was initially. But when he found out, she could not hide. Anyway, Mundus found Eve, dragged her into Limbo, and tore her heart out while Dante looked on and Virgil hid, undiscovered. Sparda presumably sensed this and came to the rescue, saving Dante and Virgil and perhaps killing Mundus' henchmen without him noticing, much like how at the end of the game Mundus doesn't notice Virgil destroying the Hellgate, or him creeping up on Mundus to stab him in the back. This led to Dante and Virgil being on the run with Sparda. Now, I don't think Mundus is good of human faces. Demons live in a world of energy, of spirits. They sense each other. Again, we know this because at the beginning of the game Mundus says this.
Bend it over and... What's the matter? What's the matter?
A loose end.
A loose end, what?
The son of the traitor Sparta. Dante.
Him.
He's still out there.
Until the beginning of the game, Mundus didn't know that Dante was still alive, and he didn't even know that Virgil existed at all, because he hadn't seen him at the house when he killed Eve. And he couldn't have sensed either of the kids back then, because they hadn't come into their powers yet. Sparta knew this, of course, and knew that if Mundus couldn't sense them, he and the other demons couldn't find them. And so he used this opportunity to seal their powers and their memories away. Think of it in a similar way to how a Jedi senses another Jedi when they use the Force. If the kids could never use their power, and didn't know who they were, they could never give themselves away because they would not be able to broadcast themselves. Sparta then went off to fight Mundus, deciding that the time for hiding his power was over. And he lost. Dante and Virgil grew up as humans, powerless until at some point Virgil came into his powers. We don't know how this happened, but perhaps it was a result of Sparta putting a stronger block on Dante because Dante had been seen by Mundus, and thus had a greater need to be concealed.
That's all well and good, but Dante says he's been pulled into limbo before the game. He's never been found by anybody, and possesses rebellion. Why didn't Mundus find him?
I'll get to that. Anyway, the reason for this is quite simple. Clearly the block on the power isn't perfect. Virgil is at full power by the beginning of the game, and yes, as you said, Dante has rebellion. Presumably, during his formative years, Dante did remember certain powers, and let off enough Nephilim energy that demon collaborators wanted to fight him. Or perhaps, as he grew up in an orphanage run by demons, he angered the demons enough to have them attack his soul, pulling him into limbo so they could truly torture him. Either way, he remembered some power and used it, and escaped. But the key point is that Mundus didn't know because Dante didn't use enough power to be felt above the noise of the rest of the world. And if you're wondering why Mundus wasn't aware of Dante given that other demons had seen him, it's because those demons weren't hunters. The hunter that Dante encounters at the beginning of the game has been specifically sent to find Dante. And as soon as he finds him, Dante is known. This is because hunters have that power. That's why they're special. If a hunter finds you, it tells the hive mind. It tells Mundus. But prior to this, a hunter has never found him. Only demons had, and they may not have even known who Dante was. All they knew is that he was an unruly child. So I expect your last question, Grell, is why Mundus felt Dante in the intro.
Precisely.
It's because it wasn't Dante. It was Virgil. Think about it. Dante doesn't know his past, and only has rebellion. Nothing else. What did he do differently to warrant Mundus' surprised attention? Precisely nothing. Virgil had found Dante and knew it was time to begin his mission. He used a burst of his energy knowing that it would attract Mundus, who would recognise it as a clear relation to the spirit pressure of Sparta, thus knowing it had to be Sparta's only son that he knew of. He even knew where it came from, at least roughly, because he rules the city, and so he sent a hunter there. A hunter who, much like a sniffer dog, has the unique ability of being able to find a specific energy scent in a crowded world, even when it's being suppressed. When he found Dante, he telepathically alerted Mundus, and thus Mundus, the cameras, and every demon collaborator knew Dante's name and his face. We know that Mundus relies on this because when he sees Virgil numerous times throughout the game, he doesn't make the connection. He can't, because Virgil is suppressing his power enough that Mundus can't feel it. And at that point, Mundus thinks that there is only one son, and that his name is Dante. If Virgil had been there to face the hunter, it would have ruined everything. But that's why he sent cats to monitor things rather than doing it in person. This whole process was just to make Dante known, to throw the attention away from Virgil while bringing Dante into the fight. And it worked. Now that Mundus knows that the son of Sparta is out there, and he has him in his sights, he will stop at nothing to have him killed, as a symbol of things that should not be, but also to ensure that he will never be defeated.
And now, the bit I've been waiting for. So, we've talked about motivations of the villains, so now let's move on to the true hero of the game. The very essence of heroism and suave. My boy, Virgil.
Oh, so you think Virgil's the hero of the game, do you? Well, I'd love to hear your reasonings. While you do that, I will just silently judge you while scowling and sipping on some wine.
Virgil has the greatest style. Look at him. He has a hat, he has a sword, he's so stylish and cool, and did I mention his sword doesn't look like a toothpick that Cthulhu would use? And then is it his suit, and The blue outlines make out like a pattern of a skull with wings, like sort of stitched, and it's a.
Anything plot related you would care to find to explain why he's a hero?
I just thought you were going to silently judge me.
Yes, it seems I'm a liar. I mean, I could give you some help. For instance, Virgil is basically the hacker group Anonymous. We were introduced to him as a masked hacker who intercepts television broadcasts like he's Max Headroom. He uses his platform to spread doubt about the powers that be and to expose them. Of course, this doesn't really work because all the media does with this information is exaggerate the group's numbers, exaggerate their crimes, and to put doubt right back onto them. Case in point, the media calls them an international group of terrorists or something like that, when really they describe themselves as a small group of hackers. But really, this just introduces Virgil as somebody who is endlessly campaigning to pour doubt onto the demon regime, and to explain why there are some saved people willing to help the resistance, even though the whole time his message is being twisted. Virgil himself is represented in a sort of angelic way. His white hair evokes heaven, his blue clothing is consistent with the colours of the angel abilities. The throne in his hideout is flanked by angels, and even in combat he never uses demon abilities like Dante does.
But he isn't just characterised by his fine threads, it's everything he does. Virgil identifies as an angel, and as such hates demons. He wants to kill all of them. Rather than find a middle ground, he is as fervent in his beliefs as the demons are in theirs. However, as an angel, he wants to save mankind by exposing the demons, and by doing it sensibly. You see, Virgil always has a plan. He knows exactly what he's doing. He recruits Dante, his brother and fellow Nephilim, to bring down the strategic points as we've spoken about, because Dante is the only person strong enough to do so. If Virgil did it himself, which he could, easily, he would forewarn Mundus that there are 2 Nephilim, and that would cause problems. He puts himself in harm's way to maintain his ruse. As it's seen in the hideout when he's refusing to fight back against the demon, it was so that Mundus didn't detect his distinct source of Nephilim power. But his true genius can be seen in how he utilises Cat.
Cats.
Cat is the human in the game, and basically a love interest to Dante. She was raised in an orphanage by demons, who abused her. There's no sugarcoating that one. And because she was strong in the Force, she was able to send her mind to limbo, so she didn't have to experience the physical torment, while her soul cried out for help, like a weird, sad Obi-Wan Kenobi. Virgil found her and rescued her. He taught her how to use her powers so that she could help mankind. Her ability to see between worlds means that she was useful as a navigator whenever Dante or Virgil were in limbo. She also helps them move between worlds. Virgil helped Cat understand her mission. And in her idealism, she believed in and idolised him for everything he stood for. Quite rightly, he did save her after all. Her great mistake, and his triumph, is that she sees herself as his peer, while he sees her as just a human. She is useful, but beneath him. We see this when she is getting captured. During this portion of the game, Virgil is making sure to back up some of the information on his computer, while destroying the rest. We realise later on what he is backing up is the blueprints for Mundus Tower. I've seen people on forums moaning that it makes no sense to see him backing up information when he didn't use it, or we didn't see it being used later on. This is because he expected Cat to die, and was enacting Plan B, a Plan B that likely had a contingency for if Cat was broken in interrogation, and revealed Virgil's true identity to Mundus. We never see this plan because Dante convinces Virgil to help him rescue her. Of course, Virgil only agrees because he needs Dante's help, and because Cat does prove useful later on. This doesn't make him a pushover though. We see that he is also ruthless. He kills Lilith and the child because he knows that they cannot be allowed to live, even if it means that Cat dies. It's only because of Dante that she survives, but Virgil is cold and precise, a true leader committed to his plan. That's why we don't see his true power until after it's revealed to Mundus, and he reveals himself to be extremely powerful in his own right. After he saves the world from Mundus, he selflessly elects himself as leader of the world. Quite rightly too. We're looking at this as a parallel to the real world, and mankind has shown itself to be convinced at large by the big media corporations. It needs someone like me, like Virgil, to steer it in the right direction. News Corp, Google, Apple, Samsung, CNN, and the world government need to be pulled down so that people are free to know the truth of the world. But the little people need someone smart to show them what's right. Otherwise, the next charismatic idiot will just start controlling things again. I think I'm more than qualified to accept the position of saviour.
But Dante disagrees.
What would he know, though? He's basically a demon. Ugh.
I think that even though Virgil doesn't want to admit it, his kill first, care later approach is quite demonic. He presents himself as a pure angel, but is a demon at heart, just like Dante is the polar opposite. The thing with Dante is, there's not much to say about him. He is the game's everyman, the player's vessel. Yes, he's abrasive, crass, angry, but he's also ignorant to the truth. He drinks the demon juice, reads the corrupt press, watches the indoctrinating TV shows. But through all this, he's also very much both angel and demon, as shown in this subtle visual metaphor that would make Stephanie Meyer proud. But anyway, these influences don't work on him because of his origins. But this just leaves him bored and unsatisfied with the world, so he rebels against it, to find a genuine reaction in the world of sedated drones. He finds the plot with us, learns to care because of Kat, the only real human that he meets. She's actually pivotal to the story. Where Virgil treats her as a mere tool, Dante, through learning of her story, starts to care about her. Dante's motivation was originally vengeance for his mother, but gradually it became one of protecting humanity, and it's all because of his interactions with Kat. It's actually quite subtle. He originally agrees to meet Virgil because he owes her for saving his life. Then he becomes grossed out by what's in her spell.
Doesn't smell too good. What's in the can?
Sea salt, shark oil, iron shavings, desiccated squirrel semen, wolf hair.
Good stuff.
And then after learning of her story, they start to actually share jokes.
What is that, an egg timer?
It's a vial containing a spell I made from a variety of...
I don't need to know.
You jump, I twist.
Are you serious?
Trust me.
I jump, you twist.
Good luck.
She's the one person that he isn't mean to, and makes him actually appear almost like a real person. He stays with her as the police brutalise her, and uses his knowledge from being arrested himself to help her survive. We see the corruption and brutality of the world through Dante's eyes, and because he doesn't have that much personality, we're not so invested in him as a person that we miss the true message of the game. I mean, you can't argue with that. How can he have much true personality if he starts the game not knowing his history, or his parents? He's a more rounded character at the end because he becomes human by caring about humanity, even if Virgil disagrees.
I can't believe you think that Kat actually matters. She's just a demoiselle de tresse.
Not really. In every single mission, she is actually highly useful.
Useful.
Kat saved my life. Kat held out under torture to keep your existence a secret. Kat led us through the tower to Mundus's lair. We would have failed 20 times over if it weren't for her.
Listen.
And before anybody moans that I didn't address it, I'm going to explain the slow motion bit.
Oh, this should be good.
The slow motion happens when Mundus fires out a huge blast of energy from his tower, which is right by the Hellmouth. This blast of power crosses both Limbo and the real world, as we see when the world actually changes somewhat as the shockwave passes. At this time, Dante has crossed into a half Limbo where he is at full power. The physical and the spirit energy have converged. We are playing as Dante, experiencing the world from his perspective, and he's just had this huge power boost where he's going at full tilt to save the ones he loves. It's like Neo in The Matrix. The world isn't slowing down, it's Dante speeding up in these pockets of pure power, at this moment of pure urgency, and we're seeing the results from his eyes.
Well, if you're so good, this forum user wants to know why my boy Virgil doesn't get any gift from the mansion when Dante does, and why Virgil's sword can appear in the real world.
Well, you see, the problem is that Virgil does get gifts from the mansion. It's just that his powers are more angel than demons. Whereas Dante gets weapon, Virgil fights more with speed, movement techniques, cloning and whatnot. As for the physical manifestation of the sword, like I said, Virgil is much more angel. Angels can manifest in the real world, so if Virgil has an angel sword, he has it in the real world, but he can't stow it in the nether realms like Dante does. It really is simple if you just think about it.
I bet you even think Dante is right in the end, don't you? You side with humans having complete freedom, because you're one of them. You're one of them freedom lovers.
No, actually. The ending raises a question to which there is no answer. There is no such thing as a genuine freedom fighter. If you want complete freedom for all, then by taking action against others who have chosen a different path is not giving freedom. It's impressing your own viewpoint. Any act to give freedom is taking it away from somebody who has chosen to do something else. Dante, for his part, wanted to give freedom, but he took that choice away the moment that he intervened and forced the world to come face to face with demons. Some people really would have chosen ignorance, but that was no longer their choice. That is not freedom. And even when he says that he will protect mankind, it's a complex dilemma because, well, how does he decide what needs protecting when he's not a human? Up until about a day ago, he was a nihilist. If he intervenes, he's doing exactly what he told Virgil not to do. True freedom is not intervention or protection. So, what is your conclusion?
That Virgil is stylish and wonderful in every way, shape and form. Probably one of the greatest characters ever put to any medium that has existed. No, not medium. Any piece of art.
Interesting. For me, DMC raises an interesting question. If we do object to the control that all of these aspects are putting over our lives, banks, media, politicians, large corporations, what can we do about it? Do we turn ourselves into terrorists? Do we try to convince people that things they like are bad, to exert our own power over them in a bid to make the world a better place for us? Or accept that people have freedom and let them carry on, blind but perhaps happy? I can't answer that, but I hope it's made you think. Or perhaps we've been talking bollocks this whole time.
Well, I don't know about me, but you, absolutely.